everybody, Jim from Jim's Coleus and Coleus. Just checking in, just going over some of my rootings, water changing. I'll get to that real quick, and we're going to check in on how my germinations are doing. And if you're following along, you're growing germinations along with me, don't get too tied up and worry about where I'm at compared to where you at. There's so many variables: temperature, where you live, when you sowed your seeds, where you got your seeds from. So many variables. Use it as a guide. Don't get discouraged. Be patient. As the days start to get longer and so forth, your germinations will feel that, and grow lights and something is nothing like natural daylight. So anyway, don't get discouraged. Keep following along. It's really a lot of fun, and this is the hard part. It really is. The patience, the anticipation, the fear of failing. Even myself, after all these years, it's so nerve-wracking, I guess, that I'm watching my seeds and for all the years I've been growing them, I still were they like this last year, or weren't they better? Didn't they look better last year or the year before or whatever? And I get so tied up in it, and I try to take my own advice. So, so take it slow. If you're growing Coleus along with me from seed, take your time, let them grow in. I'm going to give you little pointers now, and enjoy, because that's what it's all about. Okay, so first stop. Again, here are my rootings. I got a number of different rootings. If you're following along, you know, is my fishnets. I used to call these inky fingers, but they're flamingos. So I saved 2 this year. They're doing fine. They're a little leggy, but that's the same thing happened last year. And of course, my Lord Voldemorts. They do really, really well. And again, of course, I can't get the seeds. They never seed. They're very, very difficult to seed. And but they're fabulous for rooting. So I got half of them here. Just did a partial water change. Now, they're growing plants and so forth. You can get really into the science and so forth. And I've gotten a number of suggestions from people saying, oh, don't rinse the root ball. There's all the root hormone, natural root ball. Leave it. Just add water. You know what? Over the years, I'm going to stick with what's worked for me. I don't have the time to I make suggestions, and that's for people who really may have the time to do frequent water changes. I do add water more than I change the water, but I only mess with the roots if there's some debris in the water. Actually, when I see a lot of debris and it just naturally falls in, that's when I'll start to mess with them a little bit. But I don't mess with the root ball much. If there is root hormone, now the fishnets tend, with my experience, to have a little more root hormone, I guess you want to call it, which is really, it may look really dark, almost like dirt. So I don't really mess with it. I'm really just concerned with how much water is there, what the shape of the water looks like, and if it starts to look nasty, quote, to me, I'm going to change it, which I just did. I changed all of the water here. There was a few of these these vases that had a lot of debris in it, and I just rinsed it out, put fresh water in. It's worked for me over the years. If you believe in that, and I'm not trying to say that they're wrong, there is validity in the root hormone, but these rootings that I've kept over the years, year after year after year, I know how they are, and they're very, very prolific, strong. They make great rootings, and the frequent water changes have not harmed them. If I do rinse some of the root hormone off, so be it. But these fishnets, as you can see, are doing fabulously, along with the Lord Voldemorts. They're still very rich in color and so forth. So I'm going to stick with that. But if you kind of like in that camp where you don't want to mess with the root hormone, just check your water. If it looks kind of dirty, change it off. Don't mess with the roots. Or if you want to just keep adding water, I do a little of both. And I think that's why my rootings do so well. So just wanted to touch on that. But the rootings look really well, and I'll show you my others. Okay, so I have about 24 rootings total. So here's the others. Half of them are on my bay window. The other half are in my living room port windows. They all get really bright amounts of light. I do rotate them around, but not that often. Every 2-3 weeks maybe. I got some Christmas candy here. More Lord Voldemort. This was sent to me from Sherry from up in Canada. I know you sent, Sherry, thank you again. You sent me a whole bunch. Here's the Lord Voldemort. And here are a couple of the Saturn's rings. And you can see how faded they are. Because generally the edge is a purple. It's a dark purple. It's a contrast of that really electric lime center with the darker purple, like this color. Edge really shows a contrast. And I do have an overwintered one I'm going to show you next. That's seeding. But you can see this is the example of what happens to Coleus that you may overwinter, or specifically cuttings. They will thin out, you'll lose leaves, and they will lose the vibrancy. And this is a perfect example. They're still alive, they're doing fine, they're very healthy. Once the spring arrives and it's warm enough to put these outdoors, stay tuned and wait and see how fantastic this Coleus is going to look like, along with my other rootings here. And that's exactly why I keep these, because these will all go out into larger planters or smaller of my largest planters that I eventually somewhere will sell at the farmer's market, and others I keep. This beautiful, beautiful Wizard Rose it's just fantastic. I mean, here you go, a perfect example. You'll lose some leaves. This little fella is so thirsty. I add water to this. I'm not kidding you, almost every other day. It is such a thirsty Coleus. I don't know what it is. For a minute there, I was looking and I thought maybe I had a hole. I mean, a little crack in the vase, because I'm like, that I just filled that. But it's doing real well. I love this white, and you can still see it's starting to fade out. You don't have that really vibrant pink like you do here, but they thinned out a lot. And again, I had mentioned, if you're following along, I'm surprised that this has done so well, because in the past, whenever I've tried to keep rootings of this specific variety of Coleus, they last a few months, if they'll last a few months on me, and then I lose the leaves, and then they eventually die. But this is just going on strong. And you know what? That's really, really good. I'm very happy, because you know what? That means that we have a really strong Coleus, and this is going to be a gorgeous Coleus. I cannot wait to pot this. And you may be asking yourself, well, Jim, why don't you just pot it now? That's me. I'm not in the potting frame of mind yet. I'm very structured in the way I've done things over the years, and it's just the way I organize myself. I'm not ready to pot. I will, but at this time I do not pot any of my rootings. Okay, and again, these are the rootings, not these two, but here's a bunch of rootings that Sherry had sent me. Shout out to Sherry. Again, my condolences on the loss of Sweet Coconut. She is this gorgeous bird. She's such a sweet little bird, and my condolences. She lost her, I believe, after 13-14 years. So hang in there, Sherry. I'm thinking about you, and Sweet Coconut had a great life and was a lucky bird to have a great mom. So thank you for these Coleus, Sherry. These are going to be out in pots, and there will be beautiful, beautiful Coleus, especially this. This, I believe, is the La Rambla. These are mine. These are moons. No, this one actually, no, this one Sherry sent me along with that one too. That's a piñata, I believe. And then these two are moon dust. from last year. That's a moon dust rather, and that is some kind of a mosaic, I believe. But they're doing fine. These have, and again, these I was surprised did so well, because generally Coleus, like these wizard rose that are at best, at the most ideal times, are very they're sort of delicate Coleus anyway. And I was surprised that they did so well along with these. I wasn't sure, but I gave it I didn't have the seeds. I took some stems, rooted them, and I give it a try. And if they live, lucky. And at this point now, I have no reason to think they're not going to make it through the season. These are beautiful, these Christmas candies. I did manage to get some seeds from these. I think they're a Christmas candy. It's a Christmas candy variety. There's a number of Coleus. Again, everybody knows, if you love Coleus, you know how many hundreds and hundreds of varieties there are. Aside from ones like this, the Saturns and the Saturn rings are unmistakable. You have these where you have Christmas candy, you have mosaic, and there's a number of other ones that are similar to this, where they have these little blotches of either red or yellow or green or what have you. But I did get a bunch of seeds from this, and not a lot, not enough to put in all of my Coleus seeds from my Jim's Coleus page. But I did, I think, include a few in some of the orders. So if you're one of the ones that purchased seeds from me and you got these, I think I put them down as Christmas candies. You're lucky. They should. I did sow some of these, and they're coming up. So you're lucky, and hopefully yours will be just as beautiful as these. And speaking of Jim's Coleus eBay, last 2 packs, folks. That's it. I sold well over 100, about 120 packs of seeds this year. Did really, really well. Thank you, everybody who's purchased seeds from me. And I hope you grow lots and lots of Coleus. I give you lots and lots of seeds, just in case some of them don't come up or don't germinate. You have more than enough. Again, not every seed will germinate. I've had a number of them that didn't come up. It's part of it. But 2 packs of seeds left. So head over to my Coleus page, if hopefully they'll still be there, and get some Coleus seeds for the season. Okay, and moving on, we're gonna get to the germinations in a minute. Here's this beautiful, almost a wizard rose jitters variation, and I just wish I can get some seeds from this, and I haven't been able to. So, but we're real lucky that we got this plant. This is an overwintered. This is actually a potty mix soil plant from last year, and it looks really, really well. It's doing really, really well. And of course, we have our Saturn's rings and the seed stalk that's coming in that I've been hand pollinating. It looks really well. I'm going to cut this in a few days. See if we can get a little close up here. You can actually see the little seeds. Let's see if we can get that to focus in. Not too much. You can see the little seeds in there, and they're not even dried out yet. But I'm really excited that I got this seed stalk grown in, and I hand pollinated it. Check out my last few shorts. I showed you real quick how I hand pollinated these, and it's done real well. As I hand pollinated, it grew more and more petals, and I kept pollinating, and it'll keep going. But I'm gonna let this sit a few more, maybe another week, and then cut it and dry it, and so I'll get some more seeds. I don't have any Saturn's ring seeds. I had a handful, not too many this year, in my Jim's Coleus page. But these are beautiful, beautiful Coleus. And again, I was mentioning about that other cutting before. There you are. This is a Saturn's rings. The difference between the Saturn's rings is the Saturn's rings, as opposed to a Saturn. Saturn's rings has a larger green area and a thinner purple edge. And the Saturn looks more like this, has less green and more purple. And of course, it was probably, a genetic splice of some sort between the two plants, but they're both gorgeous. And you can see these are actually have greened out all together. This is still a Saturn rings, but it just kind of greened out. This wasn't like that. You can see the smaller leaves, the new growth coming in are Saturn's rings, but this will happen. So I'm not messing with it. I actually got another seed stalk coming in. So I'm just letting this go. And I got another one here too. And we'll let the seed stalks grow on this. It's not really, I didn't intend on this happening, but it started to grow it was pretty healthy, the seed stalk, and I let it go. And I'm like, you know what, let me try to pollinate this with my brush. And again, real quick, the hand pollinate, no different. Just think of the brush as like an insect and just kind of go from petal to petal, kind of work the petal. And I'm not getting into the science of the pistils and so forth, the sex hormones, but you're really transferring the sex hormones between each of the flowers inside. And this kind of is almost like with the wind can do it also, from one Coleus plant to another and so forth. But this really does help pollinate plants. Orchid growers do this very thing, but with a little more detail with like little spikes, little brushes. They really get into the horn of the flower. Now these are very, very tiny flowers, so it's hard to really get in there. And I don't really have the time to go into each one, but with a little fork like this, you can kind of work in with each little flower and kind of work in and go from one flower to another, just like a bumblebee visits each little pellet. Each little petal, and transfers the pollen from one to the next. So I'm looking forward to this, to drying these out. So let's go over and take a look at the germinations, see how they're doing. All right, so now I just brought these racks, and I have another rack inside, and this is the same thing. I do it every year around this time. I moved all my rootings out of the way. I'm gonna organize them in a few minutes, but I have the rack out here getting ready. Once these germinations, which we'll get in close in a minute, once they're ready, they're older and more mature, where I'm going to get ready to separate them. We still have a good few weeks, maybe 3, maybe a month, until I start to do that. So stay tuned for that. Then we're going to start to separate them, pot them into little nursery pots, and I'll put them in trays, and eventually I'll have 2 of these racks in front of my bay window here, filled with Coleus. So stay tuned if you're following along, and we'll be guiding you through that too. Okay, so here we go. We got 3 large trays. I have a 72 and 2 50s Jiffy trays. And I have this 12. These I have, they're like a Kingswood torch seed. So these are all like a Kingswood torch Coleus. And you can actually see the true leaves coming in. So you notice now all of my trays, I still have the lids on. You want to keep that ecosystem going. You want to keep the moisture in. But you can see I have the tops popped over to the side just to get the air in. You really want to get some air circulating, and I'm gonna pop that top off so we can take a closer look and touch on a few more important points. Okay, we'll get a little closer in. So here you go. You can see some of the true leaves coming in. Now again, remember these. The 2 larger ears, those are the cotyledons. Those are what feed, those are what show up first. There they are, and they'll get a little bigger. Think of those as little radar dishes. And what they do is they take the light and they bring in the light, the photosynthesis, the full spectrum grow lights, or the indirect sunlight. They bring that light in, feeding the seed, to bring out the true leaf in the center, which is the real Coleus. So these little cotyledons, these little ears, are not your Coleus. Again, they're the little satellite dishes that nourish the soon to show real Coleus, the true color, the true leaf as they call it. You can see the two big ears on that. And those will stay on most of the time through the plant's entire life. They'll either fall off if you're like messing with it a little bit, or they'll stay on. But after a while, they're redundant. You don't have to mess with them. You don't have to cut them off. Just leave them. They'll either fall off or they'll stay on. But their job is done. And you can see we got a lot coming in. Some of them are a little smaller. There's some that failed. And that's why I overseed my Coleus. And here's a few pods that failed, that did not see, and I reseeded them about 4 or 5 days ago. So now they're coming in. And that's what you do. If you seed, you can see some not here. Actually, there's one coming in. Some more. That one's not coming in. So that's what you do if you're using these pods or a potting soil or seed starter mix. If your Coleus seeds did not germinate after 10 days at least, then feel free to just refluff, rewater if it needs. You don't want to saturate your soil, and then replant your Coleus seeds. And remember, big, you know what I'm going to say about seeds: do not bury your Coleus seeds. They need light to germinate, and moisture and warmth. So do not bury your Coleus seeds. But you can see they're coming in. Everything looks really, really fine. Every once in a while, you're using grow lights. You can see how they're kind of turning towards the light. So turn your trays around, move them around, get your plants used to moving, exercise them. It sounds funny, but move your trays around, because they will lean. You don't want to just keep them all leaning. Move them around a little bit and ventilate. And I'm going to get to that next too. This is something you don't have to do, but make sure you pop the tops. Make sure you pop the tops off a little. It's not time to take the tops off yet completely, but you can for a few hours of a day. When I'm at this point, I do take the top off completely, and I'll do that with these on the bottom for a few hours, and it really makes a big difference. Gives them oxygen, because that's what we want now. We want light, and make sure they have water. Keep up on the moisture, because they tend to dry out. I have the heat mats there, but the heat mat is not on. But make sure you check on your pods, and you can tell if it feels dry, and just drop a little water down the bottom. You could put a little on top if you want, but on the bottom, and just make sure the pods stay moist. Okay, and I touched on, I did a short last week about this here. Again, this is not something you definitely need to go out and get, but I have this little Honeywell fan. And I keep it going throughout the day, and it just pushes a gentle stream of air into the greenhouse, and that does wonders for the little germinations. It gets that oxygen pumping in there, gives it a little movement, and it's like pre-hardening almost. It's like the wind. It's really good to get the oxygen flowing over your Coleus, and that's what really. These are just little suggestions that just makes your Coleus plants at this point thrive. So if you don't have the fan, or you don't want to get the fan, you don't need the fan, just ventilate. You don't need any fertilizer at this point, just moisture, light, and warmth. Make sure you use those three at this point. You don't want to mess with any fertilizer. You don't want to burn any of these. They don't need fertilizer at this point. We're not going to get into fertilizer until much later. So don't put any fertilizer in with your germinations. All right, everybody. So I hope this helps out. I'll be stopping every once in a while. I've been doing a lot of shorts because I think they're helpful. And the next major step will be separating the germinations from the pod. And again, this is what I do because I grow 500, 400. I put them into the nursery pot, the little 3-inch soft nursery pots that I buy, as you can see here. It's what I do. That's really going to be the next major. That's going to be the next major video I do. I may do another smaller video like this here, but that's the next major step, is to separate and pot them, and that's when the magic happens. But we still have some time for that. Any questions, feel free to Instagram right here, YouTube, and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching, everybody. And again, thanks to everybody who purchased my seeds on my eBay listing. And we're looking forward to a great 2024 coming up. And I'm really looking forward to the Bay Head Farmers Market, but that's in June. So, all right. So thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned. There's more to come here. Jim's Holiest of Coleus. Take care.